Welcome to today's session, session 4 of High Touch Selling Program, Acquiring New Business. This is probably one of the most interesting and enjoyable modules. Outside of selecting a niche market and prospecting, this is where the rubber meets the road, and it's about acquiring new business. If you look in the where this fits in, so in the first module, we looked at how to discover your uh, competitive advantage. Now it was really examining your existing client base to see what is it made up of. How many business clients versus domestic clients that you have, and what are your strengths and what are the opportunities within your base. In the following module, we covered how to penetrate the right markets, and that's really leveraging off your existing client base to identify the niche markets, market segments that make the most sense for you and for your business. Last week, we covered um, the art of prospecting, and that's really about obtaining an appointment with a high value customer. And today is about acquiring business. This means that you've converted that prospect into an appointment. So we're going to look at some key things today. The first one is how to prepare for a new business meeting. There are some specific steps that you should go through when preparing for a meeting. So we're going to walk through that. We're going to handle how to master the first few minutes when you're in front of a prospect. What do you say after you've gotten past hello? So I'll walk you through that. We're going to discuss identifying needs and solutions. What are the hot button needs that's on your prospect's mind that you can address? We're going to handling uh, concerns and information needs or objections, and we all get them. And then finally, we're looking at closing the sale and moving into action for the next stage. In the previous week, I talked about having within your um, funnel, you need to have a lot of things on top to create opportunities for you. Those opportunities turn into prospects, and those prospects turn into clients. But before prospects can turn into clients, there's a meeting, a presentation. There's some work that needs to be done, and that's the focus of today. Is that bottom end of that funnel? How do you convert them into clients within the funnel? More professionals miss opportunities as a result of poor selling skills. There's more people that should have a much larger book of business today, but simply because they've never been taught or they don't know how to market and sell, that they're not maximizing their full opportunities. And this is something that is learnable, no matter how long you've been in the business, no matter what your skill level is. Learning how to acquire new business is something that you can learn on a step-by-step basis. The first thing you want to do is have a sales process. Create a sales process for your business. And the process that I'm outlining here has 8 steps. You may choose to have a different process. Yours can have 5 steps, it can have 10 or 15 steps. But for this purposes today, it has 8 steps. At the bottom, it's planning your discussion. That's before you arrive at the prospect's office, your prospect's or client's office, planning for your discussion. Next is defining the needs, finding those hot button needs that he has. That's on the top of their mind. The third step is identifying the desired future. If they could solve this problem, what would that future look like? How would it be better off? How would the client be better off? Um, Now, if the next one is presenting a solution. Once you've identified, is packaging up the right solutions that's going to solve the needs that you've identified. Um, the sixth step is handling objections and information needs. And finally, closing the sale and moving to action. So those are the 8 steps of the sales process. If you notice, it's divided into part one and part two. Selling insurance services is a complex sale. It's different. We're not selling watches or pins. We're not, we're not selling um, intangible products over the counter somewhere. It's a complex sale, and we're dealing with people's businesses, and it's a very emotional sale. Therefore, uh, these 8 steps can take a time to get through. It can take, sometimes you can do it one hit, but more than likely, some cases it can take Um, Weeks, months, I was once involved in a sales process that took 6 years to close. The good news is we knew where we were in each step of the way. Now, I wasn't there for the full 6 years. I was there for the final three. Of course, I'm the one who got the signature on the line, so I took credit for the full sale. But nevertheless, because each step was clearly identifiable, we know where we were when we stopped. We knew how to pick it up pace again. So you want to have. I recommend dividing your sales process into two parts. So part one takes you right up to identifying the desired future. What does the client want the solution to achieve? How would his world be better off? And then part two is when you go away, put together the solution, come back and present it, and move on to close the discussion. So I'll go through this. I'll break this down, and we're going to go through each step of the way. But I said you may have a different steps, you may have a different process, but you should have some sort of sales process that is consistent across your business, that everyone's using the same format. They're going to have their own way, they're going to have their own words they're using, but everyone should have a similar process that you can document and you know where you are at all times. And also you can start to put some predictability around the income streams that you're developing. Once someone's at step number 8, that's about a 95% chance that that business is going to close. Of course, when it's down below the planning discussion, it's probably only 10% chance, and everything else is somewhere in between. So you can start to put some percentages on your pipeline and your new business and income revenue flow. So a sales process is critical. When you are preparing for a meeting or you have a meeting with a client, and this is part of the planning process. Before you leave the office, you want to be able to establish your objectives that you want to achieve. And there's, five common objectives. There could be more. You first objective could be setting an appointment for the next meeting. So if you're using this two-stage sales process, one of my objectives might be to simply for him to agree to meet with me again to hear my solution. Preparing a proposal, obtaining referrals and leads is certainly a worthwhile objective. So you're meeting with your client. Um, y- you might ask her for some referrals and leads. Or she may say to you that the timing's not right. We've just paid our renewal for our existing insurance program. We don't want to be doubly insured and more importantly, pay, the premium again. So can you come and see us again in 6 or 8 months? That work goes into what I call the follow-up file. Or the fifth area might be to begin work. The client might say, well, heck, let's just do this. And you'd be surprised how often that will happen. So there are 5 possible objectives you can set for any call. I generally take a range. So if I'm going to see someone, I might say, well, I might choose objective number 1, which is set an appointment for the next meeting, and obtain referral leads, and anything else I hit between that. Everything I hit between that, I've hit my objective. If I exceed that, that's a bonus for me. But at least when you walk in through the door, see a client, in your mind, you know basically your objective and where you want to take the meeting and the call. So before you arrive in front of a customer, before you leave the office, you want to carefully plan out your discussion in advance. And I know some of you like to do cold calling, and cold calling is very noble. It's the only technique that will get you in front of a buyer that you're going to know the result straight away. But even when you're cold calling or any kind of prospecting, you can plan this out in advance. And so looking at step number 1 there, you want to be clear about the needs that you want to discuss. Remember when we discussed prospecting, I spoke about trying to market and sell ideas. The idea of what if your business gets interrupted? The idea is of what if you're traveling overseas and your plans get canceled or you lose your computer? Or what if you're sued by an employee for unfair dismissal? Those are ideas, not products. So you want to focus on ideas, and chances are if you market those ideas, that's what got you the appointment in front of the client in the first place. And you're going to have some sort of idea of what you want to discuss. So be clear about the need you want to discuss. Secondly, you want to Assemble what you already know and must verify about a particular prospect or client. So if you're going in, you might already know 4 or 5 things, but there's some things you don't know. You know, their revenue, number of employees, etc. Those are things you must verify. That forms the heart of the basis for forming your questions. Number three, um, you must identify the solution for the need situation. So even though you might be clear about what you want to talk about, you still need to perhaps identify the solution for the need. And you can do this before you leave the office. So if you're going to talk about unfair dismissal, you know you're going to be talking about management liability. So you can start to get some of the features and benefits beforehand so that you have that in your arsenal and ready to go. Secondly, you want to be able to structure your sales story. And I'm going to provide you some handouts on how to structure your sales story. But in a sense, you want to start to put things in some logical order of how you're going to communicate it to a client. And then finally, you want to put together what I call your sales kit or your information kit. Depending on the needs you're discussing, there's some things that should go in your folder. And your sales folder is nothing more than a presentation folder. You can purchase these from Office Works or Kmart or a number of stationery stores. And in your presentation folder, these have pockets on each side and a cutout for your business card to go in there. Some things you want to place in there. Firstly, the features and benefits or a brochure of the product that you're talking about, one sheet, not a 14-page brochure, but a one sheet that features and benefits of the product. You want to place things like your bio in there, testimonials from satisfied clients, any awards you've won, anything about your firm. I'm looking at Port Phillips, for instance, brochure. That's handy to go inside one of those pockets there, and that's part of your sales kit that you'll take in to a client also. And these are silent sellers. I've been in the places months later, and I find my sales kit sitting on their desk. They read them and they refer to them. Even if they can't use you now, they'll file that and bring it back out again at a later date. So carefully plan out your discussion in advance, and those are the 5 things you want to do. This happens before you leave the office. So once you're in front of the prospect, you've left the office now, you arrived. There are 3 things you want to be able to do in what I call the opening few minutes. The first one is manage the introductions. That's if you're bringing someone along, you want to be able to handle the introductions. You want to build trust and rapport, and that's about trying to make a personal connection to them. And that could be a shared experience, a mutual friend. If you've been introduced to this potential client via referral, could be something simple as how do you know Joe Smith, or how long have you known Joe Smith? And then finally, you want to set the agenda. And set the agenda is about presenting your credentials and bridging to the body of the discussion. So the first 5 minutes, when you're presenting your credentials, there are 5 parts to this, and it's really about stating your position. Why are you there in the first place? And you're answering the question of what you do, for whom, why are you different, what relevant value are you bringing, and whom have you worked for? So that's about presenting your credentials. I know it sounds very formal, presenting your credentials, or it's really stating your position. Remember, this is after you said hello. What do you do next? And I spend a lot of time on the road with people, observing the calls, and be surprised how often people get stuck after they say hello and state their name. So this is how you move along. Here's a sample statement. Presenting your credentials. I help business owners select the right type of insurance products to manage their business and personal risk. I'm a specialist in the retail market and have assisted over 3 dozen local retailers to negotiate the best possible coverage, premiums, and have provided personal assistance throughout the claims process to ensure that they obtain a fair result from their insurer. So that's a credential statement. That's stating your position and why you're there and the value that you bring to a potential client. And it's a very smooth. That took me about 30 seconds to say. If you match that with the introductions, a brief um, context of establishing the rapport and trust, mentioning mutual acquaintance, and then presenting your credentials, that takes care of the first 3, 4, 5 minutes, and has moved you nicely to the bridge of the call. So after you stated your credentials, the next thing you want to be able to do is bridge to the body of the discussion. I mean, you just can't walk into a call and say, I want to talk to you about management liability. There has to be some sort of transition to it. But by the way, you will meet the occasional client though that's very direct and just want you to, state your case. But in most cases, it's going to be about moving into the discussion. So here's some ways after you state your position, how you move to the body of the discussion. Um, I might say, and I'll go back to the um, previous one. I'm a specialist in the retail insurance market. Since over 3 dozen local retailers negotiate the best possible coverage premiums and provided personal assistance throughout the claims process, ensure that they obtained a fair value from their insurer. Claims management, negotiating affordable insurance coverage, and premium funding are the main issues that I see clients in your industry facing. What issues are of the greatest concern to you? Or I may say, are there any issues of importance to your company success that you're not getting traction that you'd like to see? Or finally, since talking to you on the phone last week, I've been thinking about the way in which we have assisting other clients in managing their insurance program. Either one of those will, um, so any one of those statements is a nice way to bridge into the segue of your discussion. So after you've gone through the first 5 minutes of your call, managed the introductions, you've stated your credentials, and have a nice segue into the body of the discussion. The next thing you want to be able to do before you even try to present anything, before you even mention your idea that you have, you want to make sure you have a full understanding of your prospect's needs and situation. And the best way to do this is to focus on the hot button needs and issues that got you the appointment in the first place. And keep in mind that you want to be prepared to answer the thing that's on the prospect's mind is, why are you bringing this situation to me? Why are you here? And so you want to be clearly that you focus on the hot button needs. And the best way, the most obvious way to do that is with good questioning. Your questions are powerful tools that will allow you to get to the heart of the matter. Um, so you want to design good questions and do this. You can do some of this in advance. I'm going to show you some types of questions that you can develop. You want to use probing questions to uncover and disturb your client, prospect, your client. What I mean by disturb, you want to get them thinking that, I got a real issue here. I need to solve this. I never looked at this risk before like this. I've never thought of it that way before. So you want to be able to really uncover the need and think, geez, I really should have this sort of cover. You also want to be able to verify and determine the nature of the need. Is it local? Is it so? For instance, they may have a problem with um, uh, management liability or business interruption insurance. Better example. And it's really focused on their factory in Melbourne, not so much in Sydney. So you want to focus the nature of the need, and then obviously you want to use questions that verify mutual understanding. Everyone's on the same page; they understand what the need is. So plan your questions in advance. Now I can't give you every single situation. So, but what I can do is um, uh, help you to uh, give you some basis for formulating questions. So there are 5 categories of questions that you need to plan in advance. The first one, you want to learn about the prospect's issues. And, so things like, how big is this? How many? When did you want to meet? How would you please elaborate on this issue? What indications do you have? Those are all open questions. The second one is establish the impact of the issue. What is this costing you? How will this affect your business? These are critical questions, impact questions, because once I can state a client to start to put a dollar value on something, I'm halfway there. When someone says to me, this problem is could potentially cost us $100,000, $1 million a year if we had a loss or a claim in this area, I'm there. because I know that my solution costs only a few cents on the dollar to solve for them. Learn what stands in the way, and this is sort of coming into the objections, or asking the question, why hasn't this been addressed before? So if you knew you had these risk exposure, why haven't you addressed this before? Or uh, why don't you do this in house? Can you, why don't you just self-insure, man? Just claim yourself. And those are all vital questions, because once again, if I get a client to put a dollar value on something, um, that goes a long ways to handling any objections, and also he starts closing the sale himself. The fourth area I want to learn about questions is that to learn about the prospect's agenda. So I may say something like, "Where do we go from here?" Or, "What does success look like?" He will start to tell me. He or she will start to tell me, "Where do we go from here? I need to talk to my partner." Great, you need a second meeting. We don't have any money, or we're waiting to close this big sale, 6 months time. That where you are. And then finally, you want to learn about the process of how they choose an advisor or a broker, whoever we're going to use to handle the insurances. So you might use questions: "What do you need from us?" Or, "When will you decide on who's going to advise you or handle this area for you? What's next? Where do we go from here?" So those are questions that you can pretty much plan in advance. And what I do, I plan my questions out and I type them up on A4 sheet of paper. And on that page, I keep that in my sales kit. And clients are quite comfortable with that because I open it up and it's there. And I know that I'm not going to miss any areas. I'm going to send you an example of one, so that you can see how you can write your questions out in advance. And it's very professional, and it saves winging it. Too many people I see are going in, even if they're cold calling, they're trying to wing it. Don't wing the stuff. This is too important. Some cases we're talking about trying to go after 5 and 6 figure new business clients. Plan the things out in advance. So there's two basic types of questions that you want to ask. Open questions, they're good for eliciting needs, opinions, values, and priorities. You want to get your prospect talking. And closing questions elicit specific facts about an issue. Um, for instance, you're operating a rabbit, aren't you? Yes, I am. You're in the manufacturing industry. Yes. So you want to have a combination of opening and closing questions. If you have too many closing questions, it's a very it's a dead interview. It's a yes or no interview, and your prospect is not talking much. If you have too many open end questions, it sounds like an interrogation. So you want to have a mixture, and there's no magic formula there. You want to use your common sense. You want to have some mixtures, but you want to use closing questions to start direct where you want to take the conversation to. So you want to use your questions, design them, but after you've gotten a basic understanding of your client's needs, their situation, you want to help them clarify the desired future. And basically, what you're doing here, you're asking the prospect, what will the improved situation look like once we have solved this problem for you? How will you be much better off? How much money will you save? How much stress will be relieved? How much better will you sleep at night? So think and stress the benefits of what you're offering, no matter every single product that you think of, from caravan insurance to boat insurance, right through the corporate travel, business eruption, business packs. They all have benefits. Think and stress the benefits of your program to your clients. So those four areas there takes us through the part one of the sales process. And so, in other words, I've gone in, I've planned my discussion before I left the office. I have designed some questions so I can start to define their needs, to find out where they are. And thirdly, I've identified um, their desired future, where they would like to be, in the end. And so that's part one. And I stopped there at part one because and you'll see the words I'm going to use next. I want to help the client to start to, I want to go away firstly and try to put together a solution. And I can't really do that in front of the client right there on the spot. Sometimes you can, but it'll be very general terms anyway. So you want the opportunity to stop there, ask to make another appointment, and then go away, put together a solution, put together some options, some pricing, and then come back and have a very focused discussion that you can close. Don't try to wing this. Carefully script and word this out. So that's in the part one. In part two, I'm bringing the solution to the client. And I may some before I finish part one, I may something I may say something like this. I feel comfortable that I understand your business and existing risk factor. I appreciate your candor. Your information has been valuable. Let's see what's involved in developing a solution. Um, and then I'll follow up with a what I call a mini closing statement. This is a closing statement that's going to get me to, to get him to agree for to see me again for another meeting. So it could go like this: Mr. Smith, to produce the program and coverage that we've been discussing, I need to get some information together and prepare the best approach. Let's meet again on Monday afternoon or Thursday, which day is best for you. Or, Mr. Smith, do you have your diary handy? What I'd like to do is set another time for us to get together. I want to go away, put some information together properly for you, tailor it for your particular situation based on the information you've given me. And then let you and I look at the various options and see if it makes sense to, do something together. Are you happy with that? So, any variation of that. That's a sample closing statement that will get you to the next stage. If you've done your planning properly, if you've been prospecting on a need, if the trust is there, you present your credentials, and the person feels comfortable with you, the answer is going to be yes. Most of the time, if you've gotten this far, it's going to be yes, unless you've qualified them out, in the process. An important thing though to remember when you're going in to see a prospective client, or it could be an existing client, you are not a vendor. You're not a salesman. You are a peer. You are a professional advisor that has some viable information to assist him or her, their business. That's the way you got to put your mindset, put yourself on equal footing to them along the way. So that's your sample closing statement. Now I've gone away. I have presented the idea. I've gone away, done some work with the underwriters. Now, there's a segment of my service that I actually don't often mention, but it's called shotgun. I call it shotgun coaching, and that's where I go out with advisors and consultants, and I ride shotgun with them on appointments. And we when we're presenting the credentials, I'm introduced as a colleague or someone just learning the job. Some years ago, I was riding shotgun with someone. I was in Sydney, and this person was calling. It was a girl. In this case, she was calling in a business customer. This guy's a roof plumber, I think, out in North Sydney, North Shore of Sydney. We got into the call, and she had a two-stage sales process that she was using. And the first part, she did really well. She got to um, the she planned some discussions, some questions out. She was qualifying the prospect, and then she got nervous. And then about halfway through the qualification, she froze, or there was silence for about 10 seconds. I looked over at her. The prospect looked over at her, and we realized this. For some reason, she was frozen. So I took over the call. Now, luckily, I knew a little bit about their product and their services, and I continued on with the meeting, and it was enough to get it set up for the next meeting. Um, and when we got outside, she asked me what happened. Says I don't know. You froze, but I think she admitted is that she was underprepared. She hadn't done the homework beforehand, and the butterflies got the best of her along the way. So prepare in advance and get comfortable with it. So you've done your sample closing statement. You got the next appointment. Now you're there in front of the prospect to present your solutions. When you're presenting your solutions, by the way, and when you're done when you're doing your homework to present your solutions, I strongly recommend that you get together with colleagues in your office. And if you can't get a colleague, call up your business manager at Resilient. sit down with them and properly package this together, because every product has a range of options along the way. And so don't just go and say, here it is. So I like to present luxury standard economical. Some people call it the Rolls Royce, the Commodore, and a Barina model. Use platinum, gold, silver, whatever terminology you want to use, but you want to be able to present a series of options. So the luxury model is always going to include everything. So in other words, if it's a business interruption policy, it's going to cover all the endorsements. It's going to cover every single side benefit that can be in there. The standard one is going to have some of those on there, not as many, but some. It's going to have the opportunity to upgrade. And the economical model, the alternatives, is going to get the job done. But the important thing about every single option you present, every single one of them will meet your client's risk needs. It's going to solve his problem. But by presenting options, you can increase your closing rate dramatically. So, in other words, if you only go with one option, that's it. If I go in with three, I now have a 33% chance of moving forward versus, a smaller chance before. So stack the odds in your favor by presenting the client with options, and you'd be surprised how often they will, go for option two or option one. And the words I'd use is something like, I've worked with a lot of retailers um, in solving this particular issue. The most, and we have three choices here, Mr. Prospect. The luxury one's going to cover everything that you need. It's going to cover, every possible situation that you have. And this is almost future proof. We'll need to review it once a year, but generally this is going to cover everything. Option two is probably our most popular option. Uh, it covers some of the other benefits we've spoken about, and you have a chance to upgrade if you need to. The underwriting is fairly simple in this. And then we have the basic um, option, Mr. Prospect. This is still going to meet your risk needs um, for the basic sums insurers that we're been talking about. So always present options for everything that you do. Okay, after you've presented your solution and your options, and the pricing's in there too a bit. So, part of that three-tier approach, you're going to speak a little bit about the different premiums that are involved and why they're priced, in different ways. You're going to get objections or requests for information. Don't be alarmed by this. Your objections come in five categories. Category one could be to gather more information. Your client's asking you a question to gather more information. That could be part of confusion on his part, or just require information that you have not yet provided. If they start asking, what does the proposal look like, or do I have to, and how far back in claims history do I have to provide? The second one might be misunderstanding. They may have a inaccurate definition of the need, or you may have missed their desired state or missed some of the benefits along the way. So misunderstanding is a very common way that you're going to get questions on. A third way that someone's going to ask you a question or ask for more information, that's really to advance the conversation. They want to move forward. Or you may have a prospect that's well educated on the subject. You might be bringing them an idea on corporate travel insurance. He already knows this really well. He just wants to move forward. Don't talk yourself out of the sale by keep saying, "Well, I got some more features to show you. Let's just move straight to the close." They might be skeptic. They don't believe you. They when you presented your credentials, they didn't believe you. You had 10 years experience in the industry. Um, it could be your prospect's inexperience in certain uh, and this coverage. Then he's never had this conversation before, so you're gonna have to spend some more time educating them. And a very common one, during your needs analysis, you've identified the symptoms but not the disease, and so you may need to spend more time with your prospect to help her understand or to help you understand get a better understanding of the situation so that you're making sure that you've nailed the disease on the head. You've nailed the major problem on the head and not just treating the the things around it. And finally, you'll be asked questions to test you. Sometimes they want to see how you will handle it. They may throw up some scenarios on claim situations or fast turnaround times, or if I have a claim and I'm in Tokyo and I call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, will you answer your phone call on your mobile, or will I have access to your mobile number? Those are just questions that test you. The good news is that, and by the way, these are generic. The categories are the categories. The types of objections you're going to get are going to vary. So first thing I suggest that you sit down with your business manager and start to ask yourself on your last few presentations, what are some of the questions that were raised by prospects and clients, and list those down. Now work with your business manager, work with colleagues in your office to formulate answers to those. You see, there's absolutely no reason to be underprepared. And if you've been in business for more than 6 months, you've probably heard every single objection that there is. And so be prepared for it. Write these out in advance. Write them out in the book. Keep them with you. Keep them on an A4 sheet so that you're ready. You can glance down at them and just answer the question. So no reason to be prepared. Anticipate information needs. Anticipate objections. They're healthy. When you do get an objection or information request, there are 3 steps to handling it. The first thing you want to do is ask for clarification. And that's important because you might answer the wrong question. So ask for clarification. Do you mean by, this, or do I understand what you're saying? Acknowledge it. You might say, that's a great question. I'm often asked this. Some of our best customers ask us the same question. And finally, keep your answers short. Don't go on and on. Just answer the question and move on. Um, And because once you've answered the objection, now it's time to move what I call the closing the sale. And forget about what you've heard about closing the sale. It's it should be everything we're talked about today, all the words we're using, it's just a conversation. We're having a conversation with the client, prospective client. And so when it's time to close the sale, there's some brief steps. Number one, recognize when it's time to close. One of the we talked about objections before or information needs. When someone wants to advance the sale along, quite often, they just want to get on with it. Prospects might say, "Okay, sounds good to me," or "What do we have to do next?" Those are all times it's recognized it's time to close. Don't keep talking. Move forward. Determine the next step. What is the next step? And depending on the product, depending on the situation, everyone's slightly different. I've been involved in multi-million dollar um, sales that the next step really had to bring in some other people, assessors or uh, underwriters to really get to the heart of the matter. Sometimes the next step might be just a proposal. There's some paperwork you need to fill out, or you need to send him something in the mail, or he needs to gather some claim data. Whatever the next step is, determine the next step. You want a debrief. That's a quick summary of the benefits that you've discussed. And finally, a closing statement. I'm going to show you what a closing statement looks like. So when preparing your debrief and closing statement, what you want to do is to uh, make sure you understand their needs and goals and link to their needs and goals. So if we're talking about management liability, their ultimate need and goal is to make sure that they're not sued. They're not sued for unfair dismissal or taken to court. Or if there's a fire and their business is interrupted, or the supplier's information business is interrupted, that you know they're not going to suffer. They're not going to go out of business as a result of that. So you want to make sure you've linked their needs and goals. You want to take the product that you're talking about, and in some cases, if you have a multi solution involved, so you might be talking about a business interruption, a corporate travel, and a management liability all in one hit, but you take them one step at a time. For each one, you want to go through the need, the benefit of the policy, the features, the proof. The proof is um, claims, testimonials. and confirm the need, confirm that the client understands that meets his need, and then summarize and ask for the advance. The advance might be you're going to discuss the next product and go through the same process again. I will provide you a little checklist to help you with that for every product. Once again, you can do this in advance. You want to list out the needs, the benefits, the features, gather some proof, confirm, and so the your claims people will be able to help you with the proof side, or your business manager along the way. For each product that you're presenting, you want to have some sort of um, format such as that there. And once again, I'll provide you with a check sheet that will assist you on that. Here's a sample closing statement. And it's very simple. I would very much like to be your insurance advisor, or you're the ideal client we'd like to do business with. No fancy closes. There's no, forget the 101 closes you taught, before. This is a conversation you're dealing with the peer. You presented some recommendations, some ideas on how to solve her risk problem. Now you're just saying, I very much would like to be able to help you with this. Let's work together on this. One of my favorite sayings that I've used several times, uh, particularly if I'm presenting options, the luxury, the middle option, and the budget option. I might say, Mr. Prospect, let's start with the budget option. Let's get our toe in the water. Let's get this at least risk taken off the taken off your mind. Now next year, let's come back and sit down and review this again. And if it makes sense for you, we'll take you up to the next level. We'll add some additional features to that. And then over about a 3 to 4 year period, we'll get you up to the ultimate level. But right now, let's at least get you started and get this problem solved for you right now. So that's another version of a closing statement along the way. When you close a sale, when you ask for the business, there's only three possible outcomes that can happen. First one, you're rejected. Happens to all of us. The client says no, or they raise, and more likely, they're not going to say no straight out. They're going to raise a objection or concern. When that happens, you simply handle the objection according to the sequence that I outlined. You verify, you confirm the need, you confirm the objection, you acknowledge it, and then you provide the information, short answer. Or sometimes if you just plain reject it, move on. Shake their hand. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you very much. I wish you the best. Or I'm sorry I couldn't be of assistance to you. I've enjoyed meeting with you. Shake your hand and move on. There's too many other prospects out there. The second outcome is it's not the right time. Love to do this. Timing is wrong. If you come back and see us in 6 months, we'll sign the paperwork. Great. I place it in my follow-up file. And the third option is, let's do it. A close the sale. And once again, I said if you do this enough and have a process, two-step process like I've outlined here, you're gonna allow people to look at it and think, well, this makes sense. Let's just do this. What do we have to do now? So, closing the sale is to acquire business, you need to sell. This is a sales business. Sales not a dirty word. Um, your clients have problems out there. Your existing clients have challenges out there, but the whole bunch of prospects out there do not know you exist. They have problems that they do not know that they can purchase cover for. And that's your job as the professional advisor. And you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your clients to have a process. Wouldn't it be a shame for a client to have a misadventure and you not close a sale simply because you didn't have the techniques? You know, have some steps. Your process might be different, but have some process the way you go about preparing, identifying needs, presenting solutions, and closing the sale. I like a two-part process. You could have three or four or five parts. It doesn't really make any difference, but have a process in place. So I like you to sit down and work with your business managers on developing your process. Um, Lay out your steps. So what I suggest you do on this, you sit down with your business manager or Ken or whoever you need to do. Talk about how you acquire business and just write it all out on a whiteboard. And then work out what needs to be changed, refined, or put in some sort of order. And then make sure everyone else in the office agrees to it. If you use Act or some of these other software programs, you can put your process in there. That's not necessary, but as long as you have it documented somewhere. Second thing you want to do with your colleagues or your business managers, you want to create answers to your most common objections. You want to write these down. Keep them on your computer. Keep if you work in office with others, keep them in the shared folder. Print them out. Keep them with you. You'll memorize these after a while, but they should be with you wherever you do business. Um, but if you've been in business more than 6 months, you will have probably heard every single common objection you're going to hear. And then finally, you want to create a positioning statement. Once again, I suggest you get together with your business manager. For some of your larger firms, I'm actually going to suggest you get together with Ken or a group if you can get together and work out your positioning statement. How you going to present your credentials? What are you going to say if you say hello? And write that out. Play with the words. Get the words right so it's comfortable. This is something you memorize, and so it just rolls out. But it takes practice for that to happen. So it rolls out like a conversation along the way. So those are things that um, you want to do. You should do um, with your business manager along the way. Selling new business is lifeblood. All of you have tremendous potential in your book. Some of you have the capacity and the capabilities to double and triple the size of your business. But for that, you're going to need to be able to sit down in front of prospective clients and sell. And selling is not a dirty word. It is the way that your clients purchase. You're educating your clients. And right now, there are 5 and 6 figures, maybe a 7 figure opportunities out there waiting for you. But if you don't get them, someone else will go home and get them for you. So review this review this module with your business manager. Do the exercises, write out your statements, and you'll be well on your way to building a business and expanding your present one.